Isn't this Niels guy running the bot on 99% profit share or something?
Yeah, so there's a few things going on there. What you can do is check our flash loan contract, the one you set in the config, and you can look at the transaction history there, like on Minscan, and you can see if anyone hit something, right? It's a bit cheating, but you can see like 2 hours ago someone hit something. And this guy, he hit like 0.6 Luna profit, and he bid 0.18, so that's like a third. Yeah. So I mean, it's something, right?
So wait, can you repeat that process just from the get go? Because I want to write all this down.
Yeah. Wait, I can also.
Yeah, actually, we can. You will probably explain this in the workshop as well, right? So we might as well.
I wasn't gonna, but I will do it now. I mean, we have a.
We can do both, right?
We'll
do a little start here as a nice introduction, and then do it from the start.
Yeah, exactly. So let's start officially with the workshop right now, because now I have to be the German, you know. We're already 3 minutes over, so.
Sorry.
All right, guys. Yeah. So welcome everybody. Thanks for attending. Today is gonna be an introduction about MEV and arbitrage bots. We got our expert here, Bossanova. He will conduct pretty much the whole workshop. I will jump in once in a while, but other than that, feel free to ask questions anytime, basically. You can unmute yourself as long as that goes well and not everybody's talking over each other. We'll just leave it at that. If you don't feel comfortable speaking, you can always write it in the chat, and I'll ask the question for you. So I'll monitor the chat as well. And yeah, with that, I'll give the word over to our board expert, Bossanova. You're good to go.
Yeah, that's very official. I'll be I'll put some disclaimers on that title. But yeah. So today we're gonna talk about. I don't know if you're recording this, no, Nico?
Yeah. I already hit record, so all good. Yeah.
All right, so cut this off then. Yeah, so basically to start off, we're gonna talk about the arbitrage bots we've been developing recently. Basically, the ones we open sourced. Also, why do we open source this, and what does it do? What doesn't it do? Why did we open source it? Like, what does it do for the white whale protocol? And then after like that intro, we'll do some general stuff about MEV and arbitrage, skip, current features. I think Jeremy from Skip will also join in a bit, so he can explain further like all the skip questions, because the bot usually runs on skip, so the errors you might obtain are also better explained by them sometimes. And then maybe in the end we'll do a walkthrough to through the config, so I can answer questions, everything that's unclear. Because I think there's a lot of things we can improve, and I need feedback to do so. Maybe I'll run it in the end, but you probably all know that you won't see anything special going on there. So a few disclaimers. I'm not a TypeScript dev, although the bot's written in TypeScript. I'm not a native TypeScript dev. I've just picked it up because people in the Discord voted for TypeScript to write an open source bot in. So that's one. The second, this is not financial advice. I probably won't make you all rich. I don't order your Lamborghini yet. I'd like to make this interactive as well. So yeah, like Nico already said, ask questions if you want to in chat voice if you're not comfortable with speaking. Because else I'll just rattle on for hours and hours about arbitrage, MEV, liquidations, interchain arbitrage, everything. So basically, I think I see Sen comes here as well. Maybe you can elaborate a little on like what white whale protocols doing right now and where we came from, and just to keep the conversation a bit dynamic, maybe.
Sure. Thanks for the pleasant introduction, Bossanova. So I'm Sencom. You can also call me David, whatever you like. I'm CTO of White Whale. So White Whale started or roughly 2 years ago on Terra Classic as an open arbitrage protocol. So that's where we had our expertise in MEV bots and flash loans already. But after the Terra crash happened, instead of taking whatever money we have left and run, we decided to stay and build. So that's what we've been doing ever since the crash happened. And there are two interesting things I want to touch here. So one is the new Megaloo chain we're building. So we're building a permissionless COSM-WASM chain. It's going to launch soon, very soon, with Alliance in it. So we're going to be one of the first projects to have interchain security powered by Alliance. And the chain will be permissionless, so that everybody and everything can be deployed there. But the prominent use case why we, as White Whale, decided to build our own chain is that we need a home for the White Whale protocol, this interchain protocol we're building. So what's the White Whale protocol? So it is, we call this interchain liquidity protocol. So instead of just having a protocol on one chain, an application on one chain, we're building applications on a lot of different chains and then connect them. So think about not app chains, but an application that uses different chains. And specifically, we noticed that with the Cosmos ecosystem and this app chain theory, the ecosystem will grow. You get a lot of chains, and this will lead to fractured liquidity across the ecosystem because you will have a lot of DEXs, money markets, lending platforms, order books, and so on. And fractured liquidity is a market inefficiency that's quite bad for you have price discrepancies, you have high price impact when you try to trade. So that's bad user experience. So we're building this protocol where we have DEXs and flash loan vaults deployed on different chains. So right now we're live on Comdex, Juno, Terra, Chihuahua, and Injective Mainnet. So if you go to our application, app.whitewhale.money, you can trade on all 5 chains, and the number will grow. And now closing the circle why we need our own chain. So we're developing a interchain component to this where you can LP your tokens in one place. So you just hit the deposit button, and in the background, this liquidity will be split and spread out across all the DEXs we have on different chains. Then it's getting rebalanced. So token holders of the Whale token will be able to actually move liquidity to where they want to move it. So think of it like, there's this basket of liquidity, let's just say 10 millions, and the Whale holders control the liquidity and can say, all right, we want more in Juno, or we want more to inject it. And that's why we need this chain. That's why we're building it. And that's the White Whale protocol in a nutshell. Now, how do the bots play into this? So we have flash loans. Flash loans need to be used, and they're mostly used by arbitrage people or arbitrage bots and liquidation bots. And we like to bootstrap this whole thing, and decided to release an open source bot that natively integrates with our flash loans and Skip, so everybody can just get into the MEV game, get their hands dirty without capital because it uses flash loans, and without too high engineering costs because it uses Skip, and that levels the playing field a lot. And the benefit for us is why we open source this is because the White Whale protocol profits from trading volume on the DEX and trading volume or flash loan volume. So that generates fees, which partly goes to the token holders. So that's the loop why we do all of this. And with that, I'd like to give over back to the MEV manager, Bossanova.
I actually have a few questions, or do you want to do them at the end?
I think if it's protocol related, shoot them now.
It is actually. I'm curious about, you mentioned you want your own chain to give it a home. Because you also want to make it permissionless, is it a goal to onboard protocols that would have otherwise deployed on Juno? And if so, what's the USP of your chain as opposed to Juno? And my second question is, if you want to rebalance liquidity through that idea where you have liquidity input in one place and it gets distributed and you can rebalance it, how do you deal with unbonding periods where you, on most protocols, don't make any money during unbonding times?
Yeah, so let's go with the second question first. That's a really simple question, or the answer is really simple, because we balance or we move the liquidity between our own DEXs, which we already have since we're an interchain protocol live on 5 chains. So the liquidity that you will be able to put in this interchain, component of our protocol will not go to TerraSwap. It will go to the White Whale liquidity hub. So that reads, flash loans and DEX on Terra, or will go to the White Whale liquidity hub on Juno, but it will stay in the inside the White Whale infrastructure on the different chains.
Okay.
Now to your first question. So the chain is permissionless, and we're starting to build up an ecosystem. We're not particularly, trying to extract value or developers of protocols from different protocols. So we want to bootstrap an own economy. And so the USB it's the home of the White Whale protocol. That's the primary purpose for now, and everything that builds around this. So we're in conversation with, or we have not only conversation, commitments from liquid staking providers, NFTs, from a lot of different players in the ecosystem who want to launch on our chain. And we do this, and particularly with Juno. So I'm not going around, hunting for Juno devs, but a lot of Juno projects already reached out to me, saying that they're unhappy with the way things are on Juno, and they're looking for a new home. And it's permissionless, so if they want to move over, they're free to do so. But I'm not, we have a validator on Juno. We have a lot of Juno tokens as a team. We have an application there. So we're not interested in bringing any other chain down or extracting value from them. That makes sense.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
A follow-up question. What would be an ideal fictional protocol or a fictional application that would benefit from the USP that the White Whale protocol is part of this new chain? What would be the ideal use case?
There are a couple of the design space of what you can do is really insanely large, especially with Alliance. So we have liquid staking providers launch on our chain, because we will allow with Alliance liquid staking tokens from different chains to be staked on our chain and earn Whale. So liquid staking tokens is one. Then things building around this interchain protocol. So you can build, for example, applications that manage efficiently where the liquidity goes in the interchain. So that's just one idea. And obviously, it's permissionless chain, so everything can launch there. So NFT marketplace, we got some leads there.
Yeah, I'm mostly curious about things that would benefit from your USB specifically, though you mentioned a couple. Thank you. I won't take any more of the time because we do want to talk about the bot. So we'll talk later on more.
Yeah, we can do this. All right. Bossanova, back to you.
Yeah, thanks. I see our friend from Skip joined. Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning.
Maybe we can. I think we're gonna reach the Skip subject in a bit. So, yeah. So that was basically the White Whale protocol. I want to add something to that on TerraView 1. I'm not sure if David was around back then. I think he was, but I've been with White Whale since inception plus 2 months. I think they started in like June, and I started like a few months afterwards. So we were building on TerraView 1, and basically this is an intro to the bots, by the way. So no, we're not gonna just talk about the protocol. We're gonna talk about bots. But what we noticed after like building a basic arbitrage bot that did just arbitrage between TerraSwap and Astroport, or TerraSwap and some other DEX, is that we just weren't winning. Like, we had the knowledge in house. Like, we had a lot of chain specific knowledge in house, people out, building smart contracts and all that stuff, but we just kept losing, basically. We were just late to the party every time. Calculations were right. We tried to trade the same amounts as the people winning, and we just noticed that like one specific player was winning 80% of the time, and like a few others, of which we were one, were like distributing the rest, the other 20% between like, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 different players. So we didn't really earn a lot. The problem there is that our protocol, like White Whale V1, like the protocol was pretty reliant on the bot profits. Like we were hosting these flash loan vaults like we do now, but the profits we were making with the bot were put in back in the vault as APR for users, and this like value for whale token holders as well. And I think we kind of noticed at some point like this is gonna be very hard, because you basically have to ensure you're number one. Like you have to make a very like a shitload of arbitrage profit. And then we sat around the table, we back to the drawing board, we came up with the new protocol, like the Megaloop project, or well, it's called the chain now, but like the White Whale V2 project, sort of say. And we were like, yeah, why did we lose? So mainly the reason we lost is just like speed. Like you have to, if you're going through after arbitrage solely based on speed, so just being the first to submit a transaction to the mempool, you need a very good setup, which we didn't have. We didn't have the knowledge for this in-house. And also we were told, I mean, these are a bit rumors, so I don't want to spend too much time on that, but we heard some rumors that also validators were cooperating with specific players that got an advantage on submitting transactions, like direct peer-to-peer connections. And we also heard that some arbitrage team was running an insane setup with like 80 nodes or whatever. They actually reached out to us to collaborate at some point, but this was quite recent, before the crash. Like so after the crash, we didn't speak to them again. But they are back on the Terra chain, so you can look on the Terra chain, and they're probably number one arbitrage there. Their setup is insane. So we decided that like in the new protocol, a new White Whale protocol, we are not as a team, but not as a value position for our protocol, is not so much the profits of the bot. So the bots are mainly to, you know, engagement for our protocol, like to use the flash loans to help people do some arbitrage. And then with the introduction of Skip protocol, which, you know, was long overdue, but looking at Ethereum, we knew this something like this was coming, because, you know, block space bidding is a hot topic there. With the arrival of Skip, we kind of were offered a chance to win arbitrage, because instead of arbitrage being a speed race, like who submits the transactions first to a specific node that has the right connections to the right validators and all that, very low latency game, it became like a bidding game. Like if your calculations are correct, most arbitrage or most searchers in this space are using the same calculations. If your calculations are correct, you just need to make sure you win the auction from Skip protocol. So that's the whole game. Like, so everybody, even if you don't have an insane setup, you can win arbitrage. So that changed the game for us. So that's why we decided to open source the bot, and to make sure it was like supporting Skip from the get-go, which it does now. So that's the reason why we developed it. So again, I'm not a TypeScript dev, so, you know, if you notice things that are completely off TypeScript wise, just don't shoot me for it. Like there's got to be a lot of improvements there. So basically, I'm not sure if everybody in the channel or in this workshop channel knows what like, I expect everybody to know what arbitrage is, but I'm not sure if everybody knows what MEV is. Yeah, I'll assume people know what MEV is. So with the introduction of Skip, we were able to, well, also before Skip, but we did win. Yeah, we were able to submit basically transactions to extract value from certain blocks, because people, for instance, if someone made a trade that would offset some pools, some XYK pools, some AMM pool, there's value there that you can extract from the chain, because like it offsets the price, so the price goes either up or down, and you can trade that versus a price on a different decentralized exchange, for example. So we do this in within the block that creates this opportunity. That's why it's called MBV. So basically, it's arbitrage. For us, at this point, it's arbitrage in the same block. We don't do a lot of different MBV stuff. We will do in the future, but for now, we just focus on the arbitrage part. And yeah, maybe Jeremy, you can provide a little bit of a explanation how Skip does this, or what it is, like in a nutshell.
Yeah. So I think Bossanova explained Skip fairly well, or I guess the core problem Skip is trying to solve, where if there is a single opportunity available on the chain, there has to be some type of competition to get it. So let's say that is just an arbitrage. And before Skip and the way that Tendermint works, which is the consensus engine for most Cosmos chains, that is a latency war. And so that is first to get into the mempool of the block proposer, because they're all, or hopefully we expect them to be using a first in, first out mempool, using the default node. So what Skip does is allow this new type of grouping of transactions called bundles to be included in blocks, where if a validator runs Skip, anytime that they're the block proposer, they first ask, is there any bundle we should include in our block? And then they can include all the rest of their transactions in their mempool. And then from Skip's side, right now, our auction only allows a single bundle to win per block. And so what that looks like is, if you submit a bundle to Skip, which just looks like essentially a transaction that you sign, a transaction that you pay some money to Skip, or some bid to Skip, and potentially a transaction you're also trying to back run, which could be the transaction that creates an arbitrage opportunity. You send that to Skip and you say, I'll bid $10. And as long as some conditions pass, which is all the transactions would succeed on chain, so Skip will not land any failing transaction on chain, you respect the validator's protections. And all that is today is sandwich protection. So you cannot submit a bundle where you sign transactions above and below another transaction. So we don't allow like a deliberate sandwich. But also with this protection, and which is one downside of the protection in its current form, is you cannot include two transactions signed by two different people in your bundle ahead of you. And so if maybe there's two opportunity transactions in the mempool, for you to try to submit and backrun both of them through Skip's auction, currently you can't do that. This hopefully gets changed in the future when we introduce a multi-bundle system of allowing more people to win in a specific block, but as its current form, only a single winner per block. So you send this bundle, and there's easy like libraries and endpoints to do so, and I can share this documentation or resources with anybody who's interested. And you send your bundle, and you have $10. And now from Skips, we check all the conditions, and if it passes, we save it as the winning bundle. But we are holding, let's say the block time is 5 seconds. We're holding this auction for maybe 4.5 seconds. And we will give the winning spot to the person who bids the highest. And so now if somebody also wants to compete for that same opportunity, even if they weren't first, but they're willing to bid higher, they can actually still compete to try to win the opportunity. And essentially what that does is it moves the latency race and latency competition to a competition on maximal extraction. So the person with the best algorithm, the person who has the best network coverage, etc. And that, I think, is the gist of Skip, of what we try to accomplish. But alongside the idea of latency and optimization, there are still many benefits of, speeding up your bots, trying to cover more routes, more opportunity transactions, etc. So if you're somebody who loves optimizing and making a fast bot, there's still a place for you in this new kind of bid auction world for MEV.
I have a few follow-up questions, if that's okay, with you, Jeremy, and with the rest of the group. If I understand you correctly, Skip doesn't just look at what you're bidding to skip, but it also looks at how efficient your transaction is as a whole. So the efficiency of your bot plays into. They look at the total end result, not just at what you're bidding to skip. Do I understand that correctly?
Total end result. There are only some conditions we check, which is like if you're sandwiching, but that's not a stateful condition. That is just if you are trying to submit a bundle. Let's say you're trying to submit a bundle with 3 transactions, and you sign the first and the last transaction, we reject it.
Mm-hmm. But what I mean more is if you're determining a winner, do you simply determine the winner based on who bids the most percentage of their profit to skip, or do you look at the total amount of profit, meaning if you have a more efficient transaction, then you might win despite having a lower bid towards skip?
A lower bid percentage towards skip?
Yeah, correct. Does it look purely at percentages, or does it look at the end total result?
We are agnostic to percentage. So we look at the actual amount.
I understand. My next question is, how much value is returned of that to validators using Skip?
Yeah, so at its current state, Skip takes no fees. So all of it gets returned to the validator, but the validator can choose how much of their MEV gets returned to stakers, or they keep it themselves. So some validators are giving it all to stakers, and they're actually not seeing anything. But Skip itself,
Skip will plan to do that in the future. I'm assuming taking a cut.
It's unclear. Right now, our sustainable model is through grants from these networks. So every network that we're launched on, we've received a grant from that, and then we've restaked those funds and have earned interest on that. Ideally, in a world, we can try to keep doing this, but if not, or if a chain maybe can't give us a grant and we still want to launch there, the fee-based approach seems the most reasonable.
Understand. All right, 2 more questions. One, does Skip support some sort of bidding war mechanic where if I notice, say, can I program a bot to say, I put in a bid, Skip returns, okay, somebody else bid more than you. Can I then say, okay, you know what, I'm going to do 2% more than that? Is there a mechanic for that? Or is it simply you put in 1 bid and if that's the highest you win, if not, too bad, so sad?
A little bit of both. So we will not send you a response that says exactly that you've been outbid. Our response will say you're not simulated, but you could probably infer that it's because you're outbid, because I don't know how many other times we actually give that response. But you will not receive the actual.
You didn't set it often, but since people start using the boss, you get a lot of error 7s.
Yeah.
So more and more actually.
No, it's definitely, and I think the intent was the initial intent was to try not to reveal if you're getting outbid, and the incentive is to just have everybody bid the max they want to bid single round. But I think in practice you can just see the error code that says you're not simulated and say, hey, it's probably because I'm outbid, let me bid higher. But for silver, you do not get back the actual winning bid. So you don't have like an intelligent way to bid more. But if you see that response, you can send another.
Well, you get feedback that you didn't win, which is easy to
which allows you to retry, right?
It allows you to retry if you're fast enough.
Yeah, so that would come down.
No, you don't know the amount, right? You don't know, like, I need to pass a threshold.
If I make a very quick bot that can submit, 100, 200, then I depend on the speed of Skip returning the message and how often, based on that message, I can bid more essentially.
Yeah.
Because what I would, if I'm thinking about this logically, what I would want to do is I would want to create a bot that submits the lowest amount that I'm willing to give. Then Skip returns, no, that's not enough, and then I can start bidding up towards the point that I'm comfortable giving. That would be the ideal scenario for me as a user. I understand.
I think in this non-transparent way, Skip does the auctions right now. I think you have to do some binary search. So I don't know, start at 10% and then go up. And
of course, but there's limited time for like the auction.
How long is there for an auction?
Well,
I mean, it depends on the block speed, right? So on injective, it's going to be much slower or much faster than on Juno.
Okay, well, that makes it interesting to make a fast bot. Then I'm curious about the limitations of Skip's return message, how fast they can return messages on time for me to respond to that. If my response is very quick, but on Skip's side, their response takes a couple milliseconds, then you get a slowdown. I am curious, and that's for a future conversation because that would take too long. But I'm curious why you guys diverted from the classical auction system to a non-transparent one. Because the only why reinvent the wheel if the old one still works perfectly fine? But that's a whole other discussion. Thank you so much for your answer. Final question: why do you think Skip adoption isn't as wide as it can be right now?
I do want to mention something about the auction. So there are properties of sealed bid auctions that are better than normal English auctions, and I actually think this bidding war is one of them. So you think this is good for you in the sense that you're trying to outbid somebody else, but imagine we just made all bids public instead of having an iterative auction and you just get the actual bid. Then everybody's kind of forced to be in a bidding war. Like nobody should reveal their max bid initially. And from an auctioneer standpoint, you want people to reveal their max bid as soon as possible. And you would rather not have like 100 bids per user to get there. And so like even in auction theory and like auction research, sealed bid auctions have properties that we've deliberately chosen over.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting. That's why I said it's a longer discussion because I think you can have a very long debate on which one ends up with a better situation for the auctioneer or the auction user. I agree with some of your points, but I'm fairly versed in auction theory too, and I feel the opposite is true at the end. That said, you are dealing with the limitation of transaction amounts, so I understand your reasoning too.
Yeah, and then the question about is purely about like network state. Like why are like on the networks we're launched on, why haven't we gained more adoption, or just the
like I'm noticing I'm getting a lot of errors saying, hey, this validator does not support Skip, essentially, and I'm curious as to why you think the adoption of Skip, which in theory should return more value to the validator than not using Skip, why do you think that adoption isn't as wide as it can be? Is it too complex to implement, or is it not as interesting, or is it maybe the old way more profitable? What's the issue, you think?
I can speak from the validator's point of view if you like.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
After Jeremy, though. Or not Jeremy, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm Anon. Yeah, I can give my my first reaction to it. So I think I think there's a difference between how validators would act in a bear market versus a bull market. A lot of the validators that we've talked to, even people who have supported it, said they don't view the return well enough to want to implement it today. Such that they kind of want to see how it works and see if any issues arise and see the profits and then eventually later adopt, which I think is a very reasonable kind of response to somebody trying to implement a new system. MEV kind of returns has been slowly increasing over time, especially on Juno and Terra. And I think we'll see more people interested. But in terms of just like the practical adoption, we had a huge surge kind of when we first launched and the people who actually wanted to use Skip. And then we sort of flatlined. And this also could just be from not like being as aggressive on the pavements to try to get new validators onboarded. We kind of have more automated processes now where people can go to a website and just sign up. And I think this is probably a mix of Skip priorities of like launching on new chains versus trying to focus all of our attention on getting more adoption on the chains we are on, as well as maybe, just the returns itself of actually implementing, as well as just, validators using a third-party software. So I think there are like multiple factors that would contribute to not full coverage adoption across chains.
All right, I appreciate your opinions on that. I'm curious about PFC's take as well.
Okay, so first of all, I actually run their Skip module on my validators, but as you know, I actually host other people's. So the feedback I've been getting when I ask those guys is it's new technically. They don't want to put at risk the potential for double signing or doing something with new pieces of code. So they're sitting on the sidelines on that. The second is public reaction. A lot of people aren't were concerned initially about how the general delegator would think about it, so they just held off. And again, like the money isn't amazing, so there's not really a huge point on that. The third one was security. It's become the chances of it becoming a central point of failure. I think that was addressed early on, so it won't be if it fails or something like that. And there was a fourth point, but I can't remember it. But in general, the people who are declining, that's the fourth point. But the people who are declining are more it's not about the money; it's more about the technical risk. And the fourth point was that running an MEV might preclude you from being part of other staking opportunities was there. So some of the questions coming up in some of the LCD or liquid staking things is, do you actually run an MEV? So, okay, so again, nothing about the monetary is MEV good or bad. Those kind of things were not really there. The big quotient was, this is a new piece of tech. We'll let somebody else burn it in for a while. And thirdly, that the returns, by enabling this, it might preclude us being part of something else or negative feedback from the general public. Those were the major things. But again, I'm running it. A lot of people are running it. It seems quite smooth.
Yeah, we are running it as well.
Boss, cut me off if I'm taking too much of your time. I do have a follow-up PFC. What's the name of your validator?
John.
Sorry, repeat that.
My validator's name is John.
John?
No, it's just PFC.
PFC. Okay, got it. And how much are you willing to share? How much you're making? Maybe in a percentage of your delegator contributions, or their tax.
Sure. This is public, so anybody can go to the Skip protocol and have a look. I haven't looked at it recently. Typically, in commissions, I'm making around 700 to 800 Lunar a week in pure commissions, just people as commission reward. That's 5% over, I think, 5 million. White Whale might be giving me, I don't know, maybe 1 Lunar a week or something. It might be more, but I haven't checked. What I do see is in the transaction history, which again is public, you can see that White Whale is contributing, but the amount is very small. It will hopefully add up, but every once in a while, somebody wins the lottery and there's like 100 Lunar MEV prize going there. I think that happens once a week or something.
So on that, real quick, so right now we're, volume is down across all Cosmos chains. So back in the glorious days of Terra, we were seeing around 250,000 per week in MEV just on the DEX ARB. So I assume once trading activity and volume and liquidity comes back into crypto and Cosmos in general, there will be much more value for MEV value to extract. Consequently, Skip will grab a larger share there, and the incentive for validators to implement Skip will
definitely.
increase.
The thing now is like we're trying to be ready, right? We
Yeah.
basically want to make sure we're ready and test things out, because now is the time to build it and now is the time to test it out as well. I think, Jeremy, like we were first in contact, I think like half a year ago, we started like co-developing or having chats once every while. Like I think since a few months now. So I think we just recently only started. We're trying to optimize things. Like, but these things help, right? The feedback, like the bidding war, will obviously help with the like adoption of our bots. Not solely our bots, but like adoption of the Skip protocol from a searcher perspective will increase revenue returns for stakers and validators, which you could end up with a loop pointing towards more network coverage for Skip. I mean, if the value goes up.
I think as the volatility increases, we're gonna see higher profits, especially as adoption gets bigger as well. So that's a downside protection in and of itself.
Yeah. There's a few like bullet points that will increase both protocols. I think like liquidity is one big one. Also, like just it's pretty calm, right, on a lot of chains. So if things like get heat up again, things will increase. But yeah, it's I won't use the excuse of saying it's still early. But we need to make sure it's at a solid point where people say like this is just skip is just like you want it, yes or no. It's not a huge risk anymore. It's not a risk anymore. So it's battle tested. Like I hope we'll end up at some point. I think. But I just as an arbitrager, I really like the idea of actually having a chance without having to run 18 nodes and writing everything in C.
Yeah, and the cool thing about Skip is everything's open. I actually found
Yeah.
the dashboard. To answer your question, I think I made 6 Luna or 13 Luna all up.
Yeah.
No,
So there's not a
13 was
lot.
profit.
Yeah,
It's not.
there's not
Yeah,
a
I
lot.
mean, but yeah, as not Jeremy said, yeah, when the market picks up, it'll pick up and volatility and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's a little bit of money.
I think it's more on Juno. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But if you look at the validators dashboards that was just posted in the chat, I think like Cosmos Station, looking at it, tell me if I'm looking at it wrong, Jeremy. I think he made like 558 Juno for the network, so back to like all stakers, and he kept like 5 or almost 6 to himself. So it really depends on like the percentages back to the network. And I think to clarify, back to the network does not mean to your own stakers solely, right? It also goes to all stakers, not just to the stakers of your own validator.
That's correct. Any validator who's giving it back goes to the entire network. This may get changed with an upstream change that like Zucky is making for the SDK to allow it to go only to your delegators, but we've had some internal conflicts with some validators saying, hey, that will only increase centralization.
Yeah. That's I was thinking about this in the shower as well. It will like it will only but I mean there might be a point of debate being like, do you want to redistribute your arbitrage bit let's call them bit rewards to stakers that are staking with validators that don't run skip at some point? Do you want to
I appreciate everyone's take on this. Jeremy, especially, I really like how transparent you guys are. Thank you, PFC, for being so clear on how that works on the validator side. And good to hear that Zucky's also working on enabling this. Big fan of Zucky, so thumbs up if you ever hear this recording, Zucky. That covers most of my questions. I do have one more small thing to mention. I think that MEV, or just the efficiency of markets, is always a good thing. The thing is, I think we need to close off as many attack vectors as possible. I think that's the biggest concern when it comes to arbitrage and MEV specifically, which started as an attack more so than an arbitrage method.
Yeah, that's correct. It's not just for MEV; it's also for the flash loans, which are pretty, they're pretty sweet, but there can be a dangerous mechanic to them. We recently had like the I don't know if you guys are familiar with the raccoon meme. I'm not into I really don't know, but I just know they're having like a lottery system or whatever. So one guy exploited the raccoon contracts by using our flash loans because he was given feedback on whether or not he won or not on a specific ticket within a block. So he just submitted like on flash loans, with using a flash loan to buy the lottery a ticket, submit the ticket or whatever, see if he wins or not, and if he doesn't win, it means his flash loan will be at a loss, right? So he'll make a loss, and the flash loan contract does not allow it. So everything was reverted. So he didn't lose any money besides like the transaction fee. So this guy was just like, doing the lottery like 1,000 times after, and he just kept draining the raccoon contract. So there's also a dangerous part of it. So our contracts are like audited like already a few times, but yeah, I understand validators also with skip MEV, but also with a lot of protocols that need to take into security into account.
They could have done that without you.
They
Yeah.
could have done that without us, definitely.
Yeah, so they could have
it was
just
fun
submitted
to see.
100 and just as a sub request and be done with it if they chose
Yeah,
to.
Yeah.
So there's
just
nothing easy about that.
To kind of get back on track, Jeremy, by the way, if you're open to it, I'd love to have a follow-up conversation with you. I'll let you message me, but I'm open to talk on Discord, Slack, LinkedIn. Let me know where. I'd love to learn more about the bot. So, boss, I'm also
Let's
do
pivot
anything.
back to the bots. Yeah, I mean, these are some sweet conversations about MEV arbitrage and what all the tools we are given or we were developing. So back to the bots. Let's see what's on my list. So yeah, we got the MEV stuff. We got the skip covered. So what's the bot currently doing in the current state? It's at the moment it's doing AMM to AMM arbitrage. So no order book yet. Though I have a proof of concept running. I want to aware. Also, it's tested on Juno and Terra. It's doing like the Juno swap contracts, which is also implemented or basically forked from the Hopers IO DEX. They're basically running the Juno swap code, which is a fork of Wasm swap. So I mean, it's not that special. It works on that DEX. It works on WinDAO on the Windex. The guys released recently. It works on our own White Whale DEX, obviously. On Terra, it works on Astroport. It works on TerraSwap, White Whale, Phoenix, and whatever. So it basically works on the DEXs on those two chains. We are busy trying to make them work on all the other chains that are releasing new DEXs. It just comes and goes with time. We're pretty busy on deploying the chain right now, but basically, if a chain runs Wasm, has the correct Wasm amount, and we can deploy our application there, or basically our liquidity hubs, as Centcom described, we will be able to arbitrage or to run our bot there at some point. What else does it do? So basically, it might be best doing this by looking at the config, I guess. Let me pull that up for you guys without me doxing all our mnemonics. Let's see if I got. Wait, I got one right here. I got an example here. Let me click the example before I. All right, let's see. What's this again? This is called properties.
Maybe just throwing in here during the silence. So a lot of opportunity arises when there's new DEXs and new pools coming up. So if you're able to front run the other MEV guys on arbing a new DEX or some new pools that usually have very low liquidity, there's a lot of money to be made in that scenario. So for example, on Chihuahua, right now we're the only DEX there, but I know there is another DEX that I think they just deployed on mainnet contracts. So the first guy to implement them and ARP them, even though the front end isn't even live, he's making that.
Yeah, that's the dream. So
real quick,
yeah,
Bossanova, can you zoom in a little bit for the stream?
Of course. Think so, at least.
Yeah, thanks. Perfect.
I can't read this anymore. It's too. Or there's a mnemonic here, guys. It's a default mnemonic from Terra. So
if you go to view, you can turn on presenter mode as well, which
I'm a simpleton dev, dude. How do I do this?
I think it's view and then under layout or appearance, one of those two. And let's see here, it goes near the bottom. Nope, can't find it. Keep moving. I said nothing.
That's all right.
You can zoom.
This big enough. We don't need to hold all values, I guess. So basically, I'll just go through the settings right here. I think I missed one. I'll explain that later. So basically, you enter your wallet mnemonic. This one will be used to pay for the transaction fees, right? We'll not be using funds in trading from this wallet. The funds will come from the flash loans natively, so you don't have to do anything for that. You only need a few dollars or a few Juno or Terra or whatever native currency we're gonna pay the fees in. You don't the capital will come from the flash loan. Mempool we're setting this to 1. If you set it to 0, it means you're not running MEV, you're doing arbitrage on the actual chain, which is fail safe. You'll probably hit every opportunity you'll get, but you'll most likely will not receive any opportunities because there are people running the MEV version, which will basically mean, you know, they front run you or whatever you want to call it. The opportunity is already gone before I hit the chain state. Usages have been I think we need to think about better names maybe. So when we're doing arbitrage at the moment, our arbitrage between our dexes currently include 2 hop arbitrage or 3 hop arbitrage, which is like also called triangular arbitrage. So you use like 3 different pools. I've currently got a branch up and testing it like these days, next few days, they will do 3, 4, 5, 6 up arbitrage as well. So basically what this does is like, it's for us to estimate how much transaction or how much gas units, like I don't know, maybe PFC can explain this better, like how much the gas units you need to provide to the node for paying for your transaction, basically.
A note for people who actually want to use this: the example is not enough for wind. Wind, I've had to set mine to 30,000 to go through on wind.
Yeah, gas is basically how expensive your smart contract is. It's not fees.
Yeah.
So you're basically saying this is going to use 300 CPU units, and now the gas number is different for every chain. Okay, there's a gas price somewhere which is different.
So why I've set this at the top for now, because these are like chain agnostic, so to say. Because if I'm correct, all the Cosmos chains use like the term gas units or gas price, so to say. And then we got at the bottom, we got the price paid in the native currency. So you set like, this is for Juno. We set it to like this number paying of U Juno. So this is
Hello?
oh, this is different. U Juno per gas unit, yeah. Why do we have 2 numbers? Because as PFC says, like, it depends on your smart contract, and for our flash loan contract, if you do 2 hop arbitrage, you need less CPU units or of gas units. So you can pay less gas units basically. This is also important for the profit threshold. So basically, what you want to do, this has nothing to do with the skip bidding, by the way, which is very important. What we're trying to do with this number is get it as low as possible. So basically, if you know your most expensive route, you need to set this number to that amount of gas units. So you kind of ensure that you're not overpaying in gas. Although it's very hard, so you might as well pick like a solid number that makes sure your transactions get included, but you're paying enough gas basically. The profit threshold is a multiplication of the gas units and the gas price. So it works in respect of the gas units and the gas price. So if you're, for example, submitting a 2 hop arbitrage, so let's say you're doing on Juno, you're doing Juno USDC on White Whale, and you're doing Juno USDC on Windex. It's a direct arbitrage. Only 2 pools include. You're probably good. You probably can do with 1.4 million gas units, which is, I don't know on the top of my head, which is like point something 3 Juno or something, and then the profit threshold is like a multiplication of that number. So let's say we're paying. Let's say we're paying, I don't know, 0.04 Juno for a transaction, right? So that's a multiplication of these two numbers. Well, not at the time, but as an example. Then for a 2-hop ARB, min profit 4 times that number, yeah, so 1.16 Juno. So we're only trying to trade this trade if our expected profit, you got to say expected profit, is 4 times higher than our pay transaction fee. Now, a small thing to like a note to make here, this does not include skip bits at the moment, okay? This is a very important thing we need to change as soon as possible. The skip bit is not included in this yet, okay? All right, here you can set some logging stuff. If you're using Slack, I think a lot of people are using Slack these days. You can set up because we only implemented this because we use this. You can set a Slack application OAuth2, I think, and you get a token. You can enter that here, and a channel which you want it to log to, thanks to our Silver Raven, yeah.
Yep.
We just got. I think we just merged the PR to actually use this one. We were only using it in places. In some place, I still had hard-coded my own channel, so we're still early, but we fixed that. So if you pull main right now, you'll get actual uses of this channel all over the place.
It's very useful. I mean, I'm using it right now. It's quite nice.
Yeah, so there's a lot of spam. We need to address that at some point. We need to get it down. But for now, for me. I'm mostly looking at Slack. So here are some skip specific variables we are setting. Yeah, they are pretty important. So use skip is 1 basically. Are we using skip, yes or no? If you set use skip to 0 and you set mempool to 1, we are going for a mempool loop, so an MEV loop without using skip. So we're not doing auctions, which might get you more profit because you're not bidding, but you will also join the speed race with others. That said, you need a very fast setup. This bot is written in TypeScript, so you're not going to be the fastest. Then, if you hit a transaction, or you're trying to do a transaction without skip on a validator that does run skip, like BFCs or White Whales, they will get priority because they will get to make the put the transaction of the guy that bidded on the auction and won. His transaction will put on top, and yours will most likely fail because most people are after the same arbitrage. So this is a risk. It might burn a lot of fees by setting this to 0, right? So I always run it at 1 also because I want to support skip.
Question.
And this is a skip. Yeah.
No, go ahead. I'll ask it in a second.
So this is a skip URL. This is basically, you can see this as the auction house or the auction house. This is basically the endpoint we're sending our transactions to. So instead of sending our transactions to our own nodes or whatever public nodes we're entering here, or private nodes, whatever, our transaction gets sent to skip. So skip handles our transaction. Now, of course, they do the handling so they can insert it to the validators, right? So you don't have to do anything with this. You just have to set this address to the correct one. On the skip website, you can see all configurations for this. Then you also have to set the skip bit wallet. This is the auction house wallet I was talking about. So you need to include a payment to this wallet. Payment to this wallet, which is a message sent, it's a Cosmos native message. That's the bid. You can do 10 bids. They will take the highest bid of one wallet. So if you're signing 10 bids with one mnemonic, you're sending it to them, they will take the highest, right? Then this one is fairly important. This is the skip bit rate. Well, in a nutshell, it's explained here. So this is old, but this is 0.52. I'm not actually running this, by the way, but so you can set it to 53, but I'm not ensuring you will need 53%. What it does, of the calculated profit, like at this point we had 0.16 Juno as expected profit. How much are we willing to pay for this trade? So what we've seen on Ethereum, that people at some point would set this to 0.9. So people were willing to pay like 90% of the profit for an MEV for block space, basically, to ensure the profit. Now, at some point, you can even say, you can argue, I want this at like 99999 because I'd rather make something. You know, there's a funny game going on there which we're not gonna talk about right now, but I think there's a lot more to it, like what that number we will end up with. So the thing that I still need to include in the code is that this payment needs to be subtracted from the profit, obviously, right? So what I do now, we just send like 52% of this 0.16 unit to skip, and we're saying, hey, I want to pay this. If they say it's not enough, you don't even pay transaction fees. You just get an error 7 or something, like either you got outbid or we didn't submit your transaction or something failed. At least you won't lose anything, but we need to include this in our profit calculation. So we need to make sure that if I set profit to 4, I want to make sure that the payment to skip is subtracted from it.
Okay, so you want to make the profit like that's purely profit that you get at the end of the line.
Yeah,
That's what you want.
Yeah, something like that. Maybe we can just do it like this, and then take 52% of it. But then basically what you're doing, if you set it to 50, this is basically turned to A, right? If you're setting it. Yeah. But so I need to think about this. We can discuss this on GitHub as well, because I
have some ideas for this as well. But I'll call you about that and then maybe make it myself.
Now, now a good thing that people already doing. So people forked our code instead of contributing, to the open source narrative. People forked it and updated it, which is a good thing. But at some point we're gonna get it. What people did is making like an array of this, right? So you're gonna say, like, if I make 0.16 Juno, so let's say I'm making less than one Juno, I'm willing to pay whatever 20% because I don't really care. But if I'm making like anything below 10 Juno, I'm willing to pay 0.4. Now, saying if I make more than 100 Juno, I want to make sure I get everything I can get out of this, so I'm willing to pay like 60% or even 80%, because net profit you will increase by so this is something we can think on. Make it like a gradient, or not even a gradient, because I don't think you want this linear, but there's some some merits on doing it this way. Also for skip, I've been like, when we were starting on skip like a few months ago when they launched, I was hitting some banger trades with like, I don't know, like 1% to skip or something. So we got in a huge fight. No, we didn't, but yeah, I think the game is more fair now.
Good question. Now's a good time for my question. So say these variables, say on the profit at the top, there's 4 times what you're expecting right now. That means that every trade that would make you less than that does not get included, correct?
Yeah.
So that means you never bid on those to skip, which means skip will never return a potential reply to that. So you'll just never include on that. Doesn't that mean that you want that profit threshold to be 2 for a 1.5?
You want it to be just. I mean, there's
also. It will do everything that and above, right? It won't just say 4. It will say 4 and above.
Yeah. So basically, it's the threshold, right? Most profits, because if you multiply these numbers, the profit is really, really low. Like the profit threshold is really low. It's like less than 0.04 Juno. Now, when a whale trade happens on a decentralized exchange, the profit usually is not 0.04 Juno. It will shoot up to like 20 or more Juno. So you will trade on those.
So the bot focuses on the big chunks. Why isn't it focusing on the small trades? Or why
you can set it to focus on the small chunks? Like, there's a mechanic built in that will wait a bit. That's mainly when you're not using skip. When we started, we were not using skip because skip wasn't ready yet and wasn't live. Like, there's a reason you don't want to spam your transactions, because you're gonna pay fees. Also, if you hit like a small trade, and we have like a wait mechanic built in, you wait like for one block or something for your sequence to update, you might miss another one, right? We're not scanning. Like, MEV is all about scanning the mempool. It's just querying the mempool as fast as possible to get the first information on, like, I need to trade now. while we're busy trading something else, you might miss a big one.
So what you're saying is the bot is not efficient enough right now to scan all the opportunities, meaning that you willfully miss the smaller ones so you don't miss the big ones.
Well, you can only trade you can only submit one trade per wallet in a block. So if there's more, you need. What we had in White Whale V1, we were having another bot. Like we will reach that point at some point, or we were having, I think, 4 wallets on one bot. So we were running, I think, I don't know, at some point we were running 12 wallets on 3 different deployments of the bot.
Right. So one strategy now could be, I deploy the bot 4 times and I have different thresholds.
Yes, exactly. You can even choose to use one wallet, but you know there's just some funny business going on with sequence numbers and all that. We've been getting a lot of errors on that. Like Skip ignores those, but I still think there's something we need to iron out to make sure we actually hit stuff we're hitting. So there's a reason why you. Also, there's another reason, like the way the bot works is I'll get to that. I'll get to that later. Let's move on.
I'm most curious. The profitability is still guarded even if you put that number. As long as the profit threshold is above 1, your profitability is guarded.
It's guarded.
But I feel
assuming. Well, if you use Skip, you won't lose any money anyways, but you won't burn any fees. Assuming our local state, I'll come to that in a minute, is like exactly what we will obtain after the block is processed. Yeah. That's basically MEV.
On a fluctuation of the price that might.
Yes, exactly. So what will happen? I'll explain it after this one. Yeah, I'll
get
like a sequenced example so you can shoot on that one. This is also for me. This is also just brainstorming because I want to know. This is just a starting point, right?
Ideally, in an ideal world, what I would want is one bot that covers all of these use cases where I capture small transactions, I can capture larger transactions, and ideally where I tell Skip like, hey, I'm willing to pay up to 90%, but obviously if you'll take it for 50, I want to give you 50.
But that's not what we can do that, but Skip won't do it, so we need to do that ourselves.
Well, maybe we can be clever about it, but then we shouldn't talk about it with Jeremy here. Grr.
No, we should because they don't really care if we vote for this on chain or people want this on chain.
Well, one idea I have is make the bot so fast so you could literally spam transactions at scale.
We are basically. We are.
Well, the bot isn't so fast yet, but
the bot is not fast because we are waiting.
Yeah,
that's how the async stuff works. So no, you can choose not to await. We only do this just for the sake of not spamming.
We don't want to spam. Yeah, which is kind of. I guess there's a question on how does Skip look at that? Like, is Skip okay with a certain level of spam, or are they very protective of that? Or
is Jeremy still here?
Yeah. I mean,
Jeremy, are we allowed to spam?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so how the Skip auctions logic works is we will always accept your highest bid, but you can send multiple bids per block, or like you can just send us multiple bundles per block.
Yeah.
But if your 90% one sneaks in, and we have it, we will take that over your 50% one.
Yeah, I get that. So, and the Skip response, is there any like promise / what's the Skip response time, and do you have a dedication to keeping that low?
The Skip response time is dependent. It's sometimes dependent on a couple things. So if, like, let's say you want block height +2, so you can send like a height for above the current height. And so those responses won't be smart for you, if that makes sense. But let's say you're sending bundles purely for the current height. The response time is, we currently have only a sync response. So we have no async response for you to throw in a loop and get and be able to await these responses in a more intelligent way. We could add that, an async response, so we can allow this to happen. But the sync response is purely much, after we simulate, we send you the response immediately back. And so the timing is kind of just purely network latency, and then the time it takes to actually simulate your bundle.
Yeah, I would love to make an argument in favor of giving that async response, just because the more efficient you can make a market, the better. And I understand that you're looking for maximum value extraction, but I don't think that's the right path. I think incentivizing users by making them pay exactly what the bid is worth is the ideal route.
I mean, the users will crank up the number at some point.
Well, yeah, that will automatically happen, but I'd rather that happen naturally, where I'm just bidding up against someone, rather than being forced to blindly pay 0.9.
We're back on the discussion on the blind bidding again.
Yeah. we'll discuss it another time. Thank you so much.
We have plenty of time to talk about this.
Well, I don't know if everyone else has time, so I try not to.
That's why I want to keep this focused on.
By the way, if you're from a different protocol or you hear this recording later, my name is Silver Raven. You can find me on Twitter as well, Silver Raven, or on Discord. If you want to have a talk about it, I'm open to chat.
Yeah. I want to join the talks. This is going to be fun, but it's good to discuss all these things. I think in the end, that will only lead to a better performing system overall. Continuing on the config, we have a base denom. Basically, this will do two things. One, it will decide the starting asset of our arbitrage. Yep. It will also, at this point, decide the denom of the fee payment. So at this point, we're borrowing Juno or Juno from our flash loan vault, which we only have a Juno vault on Juno, so you only really have one choice. And we're paying our transaction fees in Juno. We could separate this up easily if chains allow it, but usually White Whale deploys like the most used assets, which are most of the time the natives on the chains. For example, on Injective, we're having a USDT and an Injective vault. So that might be a reason there to say, hey, I want to pay in USDT. I don't even know if Injective allows it, but some chains, they will allow us to pay in whatever currency we want. So we might change this. Chain prefix is for the address. Also, we have to do this to set up our node. We're using Cosm.js. Ups to the Confio guys. I think they're contributing or developing or at least maintaining the Cosm.js stuff. So hope the guy get funding. So we need this just to instantiate the node, basically the node operators. This is our node, public node we're using. Next feature will be, or one of the features will be, we're gonna make this RPC URL, like how should you call it, like a switch or whatever. Because some people, they want to use like 10 different public RPCs. If one fails, so we get like a specific error, we switch to the next one. So you maximize uptime. Gas unit price is the price you're gonna pay in your base denom per gas unit. Right, so I explained this already. Then we have a list of pools. These are the pools that are included in our arbitrage pathfinding, right? So I said before that we're currently including 2-hop arbitrage and 3-hop arbitrage. So basically what the bot is gonna do on initialization, look for paths of 2 or 3 pools that are basically a closed circle. Yeah, so we're starting on Juno, we go to USDC, we trade back to Juno, or we start on Juno, we go to USDC, we go to Atom, we go to Juno, we go to blah blah blah. So we end up in the same currency. The last one didn't make sense, but you get the point. So we have a certain amount of 2 hops and 3 hops pools that will be derived from these pools. Okay, so basically what you're trying to do at some point is make sure all the pools that are arbable or that are, that are deployed are included in this list. Or if you're Silver Raven and you want to hit minimum latency on a specific amount of pools, you only include those that will hit you a big banger. So you're gonna maximize efficiency of the bot. You don't waste your time on all the shitcoins that you don't want to arm. That's also a setup.
Or just make faster code.
Sorry?
Or just make faster code.
Yeah. Well, usually the problem in these things, even if you're using TypeScript, is not in a runtime of calculating arbitrage. It's usually in querying.
Yeah.
The more you query, the more latency. I think we also had a Golang bot. I think at some point it was like 99% querying, 1% runtime. All right. So these are basically JSON objects. They include the address of the pool, an input fee or an output fee. This is a fairly recent change. So what's going on with this? The input fee is something what is used in the Uniswap calculations. I can see if I can on the top of my head. So what it does, we call this out given in, is we have the out balance, so the token we want. This is multiplied with our in, let's say delta in, delta in. This is and we divide this by our in balance plus our delta in, right? So this is basically on a basic XYK. This is on an X times Y is K pool, yeah. So these are the basic AMMs we have. Also Uniswap one, I think. Now what's going on with an input fee? The input fee is, let's say the fee is 0.3%, what we're seeing a lot. We have 1 minus 1.0. Get the zeros right here, guys. Yeah, like this, yeah. Times delta in, and we also do this right here. So we also have these. Right? Now this is your input fee. Uniswap, JunoSwap, Hopers.io, they use the input fee. Now if you go to White Whale, or you go to TerraSwap, or you go to let me make sure this is correct. If you go to Astroport as well, they use an output fee, which is basically when one minus output fee times basically what we obtain here, yeah?
35-year-old, I'm a 41-year-old man, dude. You're like a kid. Fucking come here and be disrespectful.
Right?
Fucking this is about discussing my platform, not sandbagging me, right?
Hello?
Someone's not.
Hey, you need to mute.
We see your true colors, bud. Just wanna
Hey,
retail there.
JJ NFT.
Yeah, whatever. All right, so continue. So this is your output fee. So it doesn't touch our delta in. Now this will result obviously in a different expected output from a certain trade. So this is important. I really implemented this way too late. So I mean, it's a small difference, but it's a difference nonetheless. So you need to take this into account. Our bot currently takes this into account. Yeah. So, for example, these are probably some White Whale pools. They use 0.3% output fee. These are probably Juno swaps. These are Hopers 0.5, which don't use 0.5, use 1 from now on, because they included some burn mechanic, which we didn't know about. Yeah. So that's basically your pool list, and then this one's also fairly important. I'll come to that later when I'm going to talk about the deterministic state that might not always match what's going on the chain. So non-deterministic actually. So what we're trying to do here, this is important for MEV only. What we're trying to do here is we're trying to make sure we know which pools, which of this list is controlled by a router contract, which are these. These router contracts are used for the multi-hop swaps. So if you're swapping on White Whale, you're swapping, I don't know, Juno. No, Juno is usually, say you want to go add them to, for instance, Luna, yeah? Now that pool don't exist. So what's going to happen is it's going to be added to Juno. We're going to have Juno to Luna, yeah? And these cases are usually handled by a router. At least White Whale has a router, Astroport has a router, TerraSwap has a router, Windex has a router, JunoSwap has some form of a router. But not you can't include it right here. So what will happen here is we're gonna tell now. Why is this important? So why do we need to include this mapping of factory to mapping? Most of these routers, they only say swap operations A to B, or let's say C, C to B, B to A. These are assets, and we don't know which pools will be included. Yeah, so we only know we're gonna swap from Atom to Juno to something else, Juno to whatever, USDC, and then USDC to Lunar or whatever. But we don't know which pools are going to be used by a specific router. So we have to tell the router, or we have to tell the bot, like, if I'm trading with us. So this will happen on a router contract, yeah? By mapping this router contract to a factory, which is basically making pools, we know which pools are available for a specific router. And then we know if we're trading A to C, bam, we know it's this pool, for instance. And then you can like retrace. Now, why is this only important in MEV? Because we, in our ARB transaction, so a transaction that will move state by a lot and we want to win arbitrage, we will only see this. So we don't know like, yeah, which pools will be affected by this trade. So we have to calculate like, oh wait, we have to look it up. So we look in the factories we have for a certain router. All right, this is going to be this pool, then we're going to have this pool, then we're going to have this pool, and then we apply the expected transactions that I explained here. So the outgiven in, which is basically like a waterfall, yeah. So we're gonna, the result of this trade will go in here and then in here, and then we get like the expected state of the chain of the chain after this swap operation is applied, yeah. And then we can see like, is there arb now, yes or no? Yes, then I want to submit this transaction with my arbitrage transaction to skip. I want to say I want this transaction to happen top of block, and I want to be directly after it, and I'm willing to pay, whatever bid for it. That's basically the end of the like a step for the in the trade in the bot. I think we can make this a little bit more prettier, but I just didn't want to put the factory address in all the pools. So yeah, basically that. Now, another thing that's on the list to do is if we supply the factory, which holds all our pools, why do we have to submit this list? Well, you might not want to ARP all of them, but at some point we can just say, if I use a factory for a pool, I just want to use all the pools that are available from this factory. Basically, like, we can do that easily. That's no problem. So I think that's one of the first things we have to change, like just easy for setup. So we maximize the amount of paths we're looking for arbitrage for. Yeah, so that's it.
Question about the input fees, output fees. If you make a mistake there, does that mean your transaction fails, or does it mean that you overpay? How does that work?
It might.
Or does it mean you can make a mistake in the calculation, which means that you might get an unprofitable trade?
Yeah, so if you make a mistake there, you make a mistake in the calculation. When we're using our flash loan contract, we're telling our contract like what I was saying here. So, oh wait, I just removed. Maybe I can get this shit back. If we're looking at like from what does the flash loan contract do, we're saying it like this. Like this. So basically what we're saying is like, all right, loan X amount of A, yeah, then trade A to whatever, to C, then we like continue this until we we're back at some point where we have we went back from B to A, right? So this is done, yeah. So then we're back of A, or back to A. I'm sorry, to asset A. Then we're gonna say like, all right, repay A. Now you don't have to do this. You don't have to do all these messages. The contract, our flash loan router contract, or vault router, it's actually called, will do this for you. So you only need to tell him, I want to loan this. And then, but what you do have to tell him is It's like, what do the trade look like? What do they look like? So you have to tell him, I'm trading X amount of A, I receive whatever, like Y amount of K, X, Y, yeah, let's make it Y.
Wouldn't it be way easier to query all the pools you want from the dexes that you want, and have a script literally check every X amount of days what the fees are?
Yeah, you could do that. Though the fees are not always in the contract.
Yeah, for sure.
There's funny. Hopers has a burn fee. It's
Yeah,
not like
I'm
you
not
can't
touching
query it.
that the Hopers gross.
Yeah,
No.
it's not on Hopers. Just like not every contract supports a querying of the fee. Best way to do it is just swap and see what's up, basically.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing. I've been adding a few pools, man.
Yeah, yeah. So that's unfortunate, but you know.
I'm gonna write scripts for it. I've already determined.
Yeah, we have some scripts. I have some scripts for it as well. All right. But now is the tricky part. This part, you're gonna tell him to trade Y amount of C for Z amount of the B asset. Now we need to tell the bot this amount. Yeah? Or the flash loan contract, sorry. The bot calculates it and we tell the contract in my second message, or this is my first trade, this is my second trade, how much am I gonna trade from Z to B? Now, if you make an error to come back at your question, if you make an error in the fees, your calculation will be wrong. So you're not receiving Y amount of C, you're receiving Y minus something, and the contract will fail. It says I don't have Y amount of after this trade. I don't have Y amount of C, Y amount of the C asset. So everything is reverted. So the loan is repaid. You'll just like if you use a skip, you don't pay anything.
The transaction fails, but it's not an inefficient trade or a negative
No, it's
trade.
a calculation error. Sometimes it's like when this happens and you'll end up with less of A because of calculations errors or whatever. It'll say negative profit. So
But then it will be like, but it will check that agnostically from your calculation here.
Yes.
If the profit's
It will just do the messages and notice like I can't repay my loan, so I'm just reverting everything that I tried to do in this transaction, and transaction will fail.
All right, good job, boss. That's very clever. I was worried about say I have Hopers in my list, which I don't, thank God. But if I did, and say they increase the fees to 20%, and I have the wrong number here. If the bot didn't check that, then if it runs trades per day, you're basically.
Well, what will happen is basically our vault would be drained, and we can allow our vault to be drained.
Yeah.
But yeah, for this calculation, like the bot automatically calculates like this repay of A that includes 0.3% of loan fee, the total loan fee, or let's not call it 0.3% of X loan fee that needs to be repaid. We have to have some profit margin. Everything is like basically included in this calculation. So if A, is profitable after from our calculations are correct and blah blah blah, then everything's executed and you'll get some nice transactions going.
Yeah. Immediate request. Can you in the documentation make it clearer what the loan fee is so I can more easily refer to it?
Yeah. The docs need some rework after we see.
And I'll put it in the code as like a note, like loan fee equals this, just so I know.
Yeah, though I don't want to hard code it because it might change through governance because we don't set fee.
Wherever, put it somewhere where I can.
Yeah, that's good. So this is basically how the config works, an explanation of the bot. I can show you guys how everything works in the code, but I think we're overdue time as well, and I also think that just scrolling through code like a maniac won't help anyone. So I encourage everyone to take a look at everything we discussed here. Everything is open source. Everything is hosted on docs are on docs. Why will the money? The repo is on GitHub. Skip has some nice documentation on how it works. If you have features that we need to implement or changes or bugs, because there are bugs, I can tell you already. Just, shoot in an issue, even if you can't code, just shoot in an issue or drop it on Discord, or even put up a PR if you know how to code for a bit. I mean, all help is appreciated. Maybe I can elaborate a little bit on the errors?
Yeah, I don't know where you're at right now, but yeah, let's end this like within the next 10 minutes or so because we haven't.
Yeah, but now basically, I think we've covered a lot of.
Maybe if you think it's interesting, one thing, I've been running this bot since 1 p.m., still 0 successful transactions. Maybe it's interesting for you to debug that with me or just see if we can find a source of why the transactions are failing.
Let me just see now. I've not been hitting a lot
how
either.
you analyze that essentially.
Yeah, we can, but I think we should do that in a separate meeting
Got it.
because
Will do.
a lot of, like, if I look at our flash loan contract, yeah, 1 minute ago someone landed an arbitrage, gaining, I don't know, 5% of a Juno, paying 1% of a Juno. So someone is hitting something.
Can you find out what their config was roughly?
I mean, yeah, but yes, I can. Well, you can as well. Basically, everything is in.
Show me
everything
how.
is in the transaction. Yeah, I'll show you how. Everything is in the transaction.
Yeah, we could even do a separate workshop for that, or no?
Yeah,
that would be cool.
So this was a one-off series. I think we should do like more in-depth stuff per subject. So I think I gave a pretty detailed, although I wasn't meant to do it a lot detailed like this, but I think I gave a pretty detailed explanation on how the bot works and the config and everything. We discussed a little bit new features and all that. I think we'll do a few rounds of these series or these workshops, so we can also make them a little bit shorter. We go through like specific topics in depth. Like I'd love to discuss like optimization on like the optimal trade size, order book versus AMM. We can do one about skip specific and all that stuff. So I'd really love to do more workshops because I think it's very cool.
Also, why did you choose TypeScript, especially when it's not your primary languages?
Because of the people. People wanted it to be in TypeScript. So I listen.
Damn you people.
Yeah, well, basically also one reason is we can use Custom.js. So it's pretty easy to whip up a bot using Custom.js. Though I will say maybe at some point we'll also pivot to Go. Or I think it's also important to mention the Skip guys also have their own bot, which is called Skipper, I guess. Skipper. Yeah, it's called Skipper. And I think the guys wrote it in Python, so that's in Python as well. So it's
nice
like
and fast.
Sorry?
Python's nice and fast, so that's interesting. But it also fails fast.
Well, I don't think it's fast. There's not really async in there. But I mean, a lot of things, I can talk for hours and hours. But yeah. So I think we should wrap it up right here, and we'll do another piece of workshop quite soon if people are interested. If you want to look at people hitting arbs, you can go to the dashboard Skip provides on the activity dashboard, and you will see like a few bangers that people have been hitting. Fun to see. And you can also see an upwards trend towards number of bits, profit over time, everything's going up, so we're going in the right direction. I want to end here. More questions, we can talk on Discord, or we can have a chat somewhere. Thanks for attending. We're validating on multiple chains. Feel free to delegate to us. It really helps us. And Nico, you can do the other stuff. Right, man. Give it over to Secret Ninja.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thanks for attending, and thanks for staying this long. So I certainly didn't expect it to be that long, but cool. I think yeah, we learned a lot today. Like Bossanova said, like this will be a series of workshops. So if you have like any topic suggestions where you want to dive into or something, you can shoot Bossanova a DM, you can shoot me a DM, and we will implement it into our like series. So that would be cool. Also, we are always happy about getting feedback, stuff like that. So if you have like any input regarding that, that would be cool as well. Yeah, other than that, I wish you a happy Friday. nice weekend, and yeah, I guess see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye
Goodbye,
bye.
guys. Thanks for attending.
Thanks so much for answering all the questions, guys. I'm very
No worries,
impressed by how
no worries.
transparent you guys are. Fantastic.
No worries. Bye bye.
Yeah, Silver, I'll shoot you a DM shortly.
Thanks, man.